I want to share a quick study with you today. On Sunday, our son in San Antonio led his church worship and devotional time and talked about the Israelites ending up in the desert. After Moses had brought them out of Egypt through the Red Sea, they ended up in the desert for 40 years. And how confusing that was to them, how confusing these times can be to us, but that God has not left us, that God has not forgotten them, and He did not forget us. All that to say, I've been studying on Moses this week. And, Moses was a pillar of faith. He was the man that God spoke to through a burning bush. He was the man who was given the Ten Commandments. He was the man who led the Israelites, God's people, out of Egypt, out of slavery. And he is just always mentioned in faith, in just his example and the life and the journey that he led. And so when I look at Moses and in studying him, God really put something on my heart this week I want to share with you guys. One of the things that we don't hear much about, and Philip had a trivia night here not too long ago, and he asked, one of the questions was, what was the name of Moses's mother? Well, we were broken up in teams in this trivia contest, and that was a hard question. Most of us had gone to church, most of our lives, and it was just not something on the top of our heads. And that's what God kind of laid on my heart this week. The name of Moses' mother was Jochebed. And she's mentioned like one time in the Bible by name. Other times she's referenced as his mother. But in Exodus chapter 1 and 2, in the start of chapter 2, verses 1 and 2, it says, "Now a man of the house of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months." Now, to preference this chapter 1 of Exodus is when the Israelites are being oppressed by the Egyptians. And this is when Moses' journey began. Because it says in chapter 1 of Exodus, verse 11, "So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor. And the more they oppressed, the more the people multiplied," is what the Bible tells us. It says in verse 12, "But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly." So the Egyptians did not like that the Israelites were having children. So the king of Egypt, in verse 15, said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, "When you help the Hebrew women in childbirth and observe them on the delivery stool, if it is a boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, let her live." The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. Then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, "Why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live?" The midwives answered Pharaoh, "Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive." So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, He gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave this order to his people, "Every boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live." That's quite a big task, quite a harsh, brutal task. And He's put this on the midwives to say, if it is a boy, kill him. So then, like I just read earlier in chapter 2, then here comes Moses' mom, and she gets pregnant, and she has a boy after they've been ordered to kill all the boys. So here's where Moses' faith journey truly began. In verse 3 of chapter 2 of Exodus, "But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. and then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. Moses' mom, she was the start of his faith. She gave him the seed of faith when she decided that she was going to trust God, and she was going to put her baby boy in a basket and put him in the river so that somebody might find him and have mercy on him. She couldn't imagine going through what all the other mothers had gone through, what her sisters and her friends had gone through. She could not even fathom taking the life of her baby, and it was worth the risk to put him in the basket. Her faith was bigger than her circumstances. She believed that God would somehow redeem and save her son. She didn't know how. She didn't know why. She didn't know where. She didn't know how. All she knew is she trusted in a God who was bigger than her circumstances. She put her baby boy, who she had hid for 3 months. Can you imagine hiding a baby for 3 months? A baby who cries and a baby who squeals and, all the noises a baby makes. She had hid him for 3 months. And then she decided her faith was bigger than her circumstances. She was going to put him in a basket to save his life. And then verse 4 tells us, his sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her slave girl to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying. Of course he was crying. And she felt sorry for him. This is one of the Hebrew babies, she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you? Yes, go, she answered. And the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you. So the woman took the baby and nursed him. We have a God that's bigger than our circumstances, a God that's bigger than what is going on all around us, that sees a bigger picture, that knows way more than we know, that knows better than we know. And he saved Moses, and his mother ended up getting paid to nurse her own baby. The baby that in faith she had placed in a basket to save his life. She gave, and then she received back her own son and was paid to nurse her own son. His faith, Moses, this great pillar of faith, this great man of God, his faith started with his mama. His faith started with his mother seeing that there was a God bigger than everything going on around her, bigger than what she could control, bigger than what the outcome she could produce. And she said, I'm going to trust him, and I'm going to place this baby in his care, in his hands. That's the message I have for you today. That's the message I've received this week and shared with my own daughter this week, that his faith started with his mama's faith. Let that challenge you as a mom. Let that challenge you as a wife, as a friend, as a daughter, as a sister, as a co-worker. Let that challenge you that Moses, this great man of faith, his faith started with his mama. Have a blessed week. Thank you for sharing with me, praying for me and with me. And I will continue to pray for you guys. Thank you so much.